And we're live.
All
Just
right.
barely on time.
All right, thanks
I'm sorry.
everybody.
Yeah, go.
No, go for it. Thanks for joining us again. Tonight we don't have any special guests. Just the three of us hanging out. We're going to be kind of touching on the topic from last week where we talked to some Bell's competition, homebrew competition winners, and kind of expanding on that, talking about a little bit more about homebrew competitions, what's good, what's bad, what kind of impact COVID-19's had on the local competitions this year, and kind of dive into some of our experiences. So
Everything is good. There's no bad. Everything is good.
no, there's always bad. There's not really. So that said, I mean, we talked about Bell's Comp last time. I know I've entered a few times. I assume both of you guys have.
Yes. Yep.
6 now, maybe?
6 times.
It should put me at 7.
It has to be, or maybe I'm 7 and you're 8. I don't know.
Somewhere
Ever
around
made-
there.
I always time my brewing career 1 year after you, so I mean, it's your
I
job
need
to
to start
keep track
keeping
of this.
track so that way you know how long. I got pressure now.
I think we're just gonna make like a card that we can pop up anytime that Brian says, "How long have I been brewing?" I just say 1 year more or less than Jordan. So, no, yeah, I think I've entered 5 or 6 times in that too, and I've made it to the final table a couple of times. Get a little note that made second round. I mean, not final table. But that's definitely not been a competition that I've had any luck in.
I did have 1 year where it was 1 year where they ran out of like sheets or whatever, and somebody had drawn a little box and wrote in final table on it and checked it, and then scribbled it out.
So that's a thing. Like we talked about that, and we talked about that Bell's judging. Is kind of it's very subjective to the person that's tasting that beer, and it's very much on do they like it or don't they like it, versus some of the other competitions being BJCP driven, where there's categories, classifications, and statistics that you have to hit for that beer. So it is just a completely different style, and you never know what you're going to go up against or what you're going to the luck that you're going to get, and it's really, really difficult to brew for. But man, it's a big, in Kalamazoo, that's like probably the biggest trophy you can get.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Especially better on the years where you get to go out to Colorado and
Oh yeah.
attend the festival when it's not canceled. Sorry, Bill.
Yeah.
Right.
God, I think I brought that up like 3 times when we had him on before. It just kept forgetting. Felt bad. Felt so bad. Sorry, Bill.
So let's get into that. What are we drinking tonight?
I got a little bit of everything tucked away here. I'm drinking Founders Four Giants right now. It's their newer like Imperial IPA. It's kind of like a mashup of like 4 of their like Imperial IPA recipes. In some way, it's just it's like a big malty bitter like IPA. It hits that spot for me for sure. Like I've been drinking so many New Englands lately, and that milkshake IPA that we made.
You know.
And, yeah, I know. And I really haven't made a whole lot of like bitter beers lately, or even bought maybe like all day IPA or something like that, or Two Hearted occasionally. But yeah, this is definitely scratching an itch that I've had for a bit. And I have some of that creamsicle here. I've got Lager of the Lakes, and I've got a PBR hard coffee.
Oh yeah, no.
I saw those.
We only started getting those in Kalamazoo recently, so yeah.
You're gonna have to let me know how that is.
Oh, they're great. It's like 5% Kahlua. Like it's.
Yeah.
Is there actual coffee in it? Like is
Yeah.
it caffeinated?
Yep.
Probably. Yeah. Is there? Okay.
Yeah. No, there is. Yeah. Yeah. We did. I got some last fall. A friend of ours works at a local distributor that got some samples in. I got to sample some, and back at the time, ArcLight was brewing their version of it because they heard PBR came out with the coffee, so they brewed a coffee beer, and we did side by side with it. And theirs is a lot drier. The PBR in a can's a lot drier, not as sweet as Arclights was, but man, it's super easy drinker. Real nice to go down. So, what about you, Jordan?
Been nursing a hams for a little while. I don't know if you can see it. You know, it's
every night. Yeah.
yeah, favorite cheap beer for the summer. But once I'm done with that, I've got some B43 that I picked up. I haven't quite had this yet, so
nice.
Well, I hadn't had it before I picked up the 4-pack of it. I had one earlier today just because I couldn't wait. I'm actually kind of a fan of the Brute style. I know that's kind of.
It's not. No, I mean it just depends on like if it's a good beer or not, and like often they just aren't, because I don't feel like a lot of breweries knew what they were really going for. Like it was a trend, right? It's Brute IPA. Dry the fuck out of your IPA with alpha amylase enzymes and serve it, and without like having any consideration as to like whether your beer might need more body to account for it being like so dry and stuff like that, and a lot of them just weren't really good. And I think that B43 was actually one of the few that I had that I actually really liked. So
yeah, I like it, to be honest. Like I said, I had one earlier and I was quite surprised. It still kind of has that that almost M43 like taste or aroma to it, but it's super crisp.
Yeah. No, I think that was the fad beer a couple of years ago, and I think everybody jumped on that train, and nobody really did it well. And thankfully, Old Nation, they have a little bit higher standards maybe, but the market was flooded with a lot of bad brewed IPAs.
Yeah, I would agree. There's just a flavor in them that I wasn't like, even me being saying like,
yeah,
a lot of them I had I liked. There were some of them that was just like, yeah.
With I think with like IPAs, so like bitterness is usually balanced by a little bit of sweetness, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like when you dry out your IPA, all you're left with is like bitterness, right? And maybe like any body that might come from like
you got to have some of that body.
Yeah. So it's tough. I heard like out in California on a podcast maybe like 4 months ago or something that like rosé style beers were going to be the next big fad or something like that. Really? Is that, have you?
Yeah. Yep. Actually, okay. And I've seen a couple of them start coming out, but
be considered a red ale.
No, it's a very pale. It's very pale. Yeah.
Is that like IPAs made with like rose hips and stuff like that, or like what is?
I don't think it specifically has to have rose hips in them. I want to say that I've had a couple when I've been out in California, and they've been just a very light, almost like a Nelson Sauvin kind of winey, resinous hop characteristic. Easy drinker, kind of the brutish style, crisp, light, pink.
Always pink. It has to be pink.
It's funny. So first off, we have a whole nother episode, I think, in the future that's going to be about fad beers. So I think we should get it. That's a different topic. But just talking about pink beer, I'll pour this one in a second. So I got another one of those beers from Arvon Brewing Company.
Yeah, I've had some good stuff from Arvon.
So this one is speaking of pink, it's the double pink guava key lime kettle sour.
Okay.
So that's why I was chuckling on this. Just a pink beer. So I'm gonna crack a pink beer. Right now though, I'm killing. So you and I did the brew off on the orange lactose IPAs, and so I'm drinking mine right now. I've got yours on deck. Both of them are good in their own way.
Wow.
I still haven't done the berry version.
It sounded very self-serving. That was a self-serving comment.
So that said, let's get into competition.
You guys just said you did a brew off, right? What was that? It sounds like a competition.
Oh no, I brewed a recipe, that is kind of emulating or based off of another beer, and I gave the recipe to Brian, and then Brian brewed it and tweaked it slightly.
Okay.
On accident.
On accident. But he was going to brew it, and so then it was comparing his version to my version, and which version was better.
Wow.
I'm looking.
No,
looking
I like
to
this
again
more.
soon. If you want to share the recipe, I can.
Absolutely.
Get my
We
shot
should.
at it.
We will.
So it's ever evolving.
Jason's ended up coming out a little bit more sweet and full. And I think mine was a bit more like an IPA that still had the flavors, but more like balanced, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
But for this particular beer,
It also sounded self-serving.
well, no, but I think that the sweetness and the fullness worked better.
If you come at it, and this is what I said the other night when we tried them together, is if you say that I brewed a lactose IPA, that's definitely kind of where I came at. Brian's really turned out because his hop profile shines through a little bit more and a little bit less of the creaminess in the body, and so it's like Brian's is just more of an orange citrus IPA, where mine is that lactose IPA.
Gotcha. Okay.
So Ben Rupel.
Yeah.
Damn Ben Rupel. It'd be nice, Mr. Rupel, if you'd answer my messages, but that's okay.
Wow.
And yeah, let's get into competitions and stuff. And you were going to say something too, but I figure I should throw this out there too. So this is like a 0.5 episode, right?
Yeah.
Like 3.5. And I think we're going to do these occasionally, just because sometimes it's nice to chill a little bit. But if anybody that's joining has any insight or experience with the topic that we're talking about, throw us a message in chat, and we can PM you an invite if you want to come on with your webcam and talk. So I mean, that's all this is, just beer nerds.
As
beer nerd stuff, I guess, right? So
as we get this show going and as we get it geared up here, we're still new. We're still only a few episodes in. We're still trying to line up, future guests and get a schedule kind of built and created. And I think these are going to be good fill-in episodes where we can just hang out, bullshit about things that we know. And absolutely, if anybody's out there with us and they've got some things and they've got a webcam and a microphone, then shit, jump in. We'll pull you in and bullshit for a bit. That said, tonight we're gonna kind of bullshit about competitions. This is something that we're all familiar with in the Keepers Club. My role is competition organizer, coordinator, whatever the hell the title is.
Coordinator.
And my role and why I think competitions are important is I'm always out telling the club and telling people, enter your beer. I don't care if it's your first beer, your 50th beer, your 500th beer. If you have the opportunity, it's a few bucks. Enter your beer in a competition because you're going to get. It's the best way to get feedback and the best way that you can, get that information, that honest, professional information back on your beer to make your beer better. I've done presentations on brewing for competition, and a lot of it is driven off of the comments that we read and the feedback that we get. I can take that feedback. I can get that comment that says, that tells me about my off flavors, and maybe it has suggestions about, ways to change brewing to make my beer better, or, add more malt, or make a bigger hop profile, or, less bittering characteristics, or whatever. That feedback, even if it's your first beer and you're like, oh, my beer's not good enough for competitions, or my beer sucks. Giving your beer to your brother or your dad or your buddy Brian, they're just going to tell you, oh man, this beer is great. This beer, I love it. It's so good. They're not going to tell you the truth. And so that's why I feel strongly about entering competitions. And who cares if you suck? If you get, a bad score, you get feedback and you can get better. So that's my opinion on why everybody should enter their beer in competitions. And I know I'm a little long-winded, but it's the only thing that leads into when I started the show and I said, what's bad about competitions? And then Brian tried to say nothing's bad. There is something bad about competitions. And so this is my soapbox, is if you're a competition organizer, coordinator, or judge out there, the only bad thing that I've actually experienced in competitions is no feedback. if I enter that beer and I know some judges are new and some judges, taste a beer and they just write, they're checking a box or they may be tasting 100 beers that day. But man, the best thing you can do is give as much feedback as you can on every beer that you taste, and to get a score sheet back and just say, see, it's great. It doesn't help us, right? It doesn't it doesn't check that box for me. So
Yep.
so that's my soapbox. So that's why I think it's important, and we've all of us have entered beers and homebrew competitions, and I'll let you guys talk to it. I mean, how have you felt that the comments and the competitions has changed your brewing?
Well, I think it's probably good to go into a little bit how like a homebrew competition works. So it's not like you're sending your beer out and it's opened up and it's sitting in front of somebody and they drink it and they're like, this is pretty good, I give it a 40 out of 50. Like, that's not how it goes, right? So
Right.
It's thankfully a little bit more organized like that. And I think I went into this a little bit last week, but there's an organization out there called the Beer Judge Certification Program. And anybody can become a beer judge. You don't have to be like a prolific home brewer or a pro brewer or anything. You just have to know a little bit about beer, quite a bit about particular styles, and first pass an online test. And then later on, pass a written and tasting test to become an actual like certified beer judge. And becoming a certified beer judge is it's still not a requirement to be able to judge in competitions. Very often, pro brewers or prolific members of beer society will sit down on these competitions too and judge. It's just that when beers are sent in, they're judged against their own particular style. So if I send in an American IPA, it's generally judged against other American IPAs. If I send in a big stout, an imperial stout, it's generally judged against other imperial stouts. Big American beers like double IPAs are actually judged in the same categories as like American barley wines and stuff like that. Irish stouts, there's actually maybe like 3 different kinds of Irish stouts. There's like regular, dry, and extra.
Yeah.
So those are all kind of judged against each other, but they all have their own specific like flavors and like mouthfeels and carbonation levels and colors and all of this sort of stuff that these judges are supposed to know, and they're allowed to use references. You're not allowed on the written and oral test.
Not when you're taking
when you're
test.
judging. Yeah.
Right.
But the great thing is that when you send in your beer, it's not being judged whether it's a good beer or not. It's being judged against whether it's a good beer for the style. And so you might have a beer that is not super great to you because you don't like a particular style or something like that. But in terms of what the style guidelines are, it might actually be good.
Yeah, and it actually leads into a good point that I want to jump in there too. Is when you're brewing that beer, and you sit there and you said, I went up to Beersmith and I found an IPA recipe and I brewed an IPA, but if that beer came out, for whatever brewing process tweaks, whatever happened, if it came out darker or if it came out, maybe at 8% or 9% or whatever, or it was super malty or however, what happened, if you enter that beer as an American IPA, you're not going to do too hot. So a lot of people get hung up when they enter competitions and they think, well, I brewed an IPA, I'm entering an IPA. Maybe not. And that's what we talk about at the club, is bringing your beers in and letting members taste it and actually tell you,
Yep.
I brewed that, set out to brew a dry Irish stout and wound up with a sweet stout. So maybe you go into a different category. There was a good one, another member that I remember talking to once, set out to brew, I think a Doppelbock, and it it didn't really fit in as a Doppelbock. I forget what it was, some other dark European lager, that it classified in better one way or the other. But it's a big point to enter the beer as you the beer that you brewed, not the beer that you made, I guess, or the recipe that you made. Enter the beer that you made.
Jordan won a bunch of stuff this last year, right?
What's that?
I said you won a bunch of stuff this last year, right?
Yeah,
Competition
it was my first one.
2019.
I want to say that point that Jason said is enter the beer that you brewed, not what you thought you made. Was probably one of the best pieces of advice that I had. And and on a point to what Jason was saying earlier, like enter your beers into competitions. Like I feel like brewing specifically to enter into competitions has helped me a lot more because it kind of, not that I don't like brewing weird shit, it's just kind of made me stray a little bit away from that and brew more of the classic styles. And that's really like figure out where my base beer's at, and that's where one of the medals that I got last year was a base style of a beer that I've been brewing for almost 8 years.
Which one was that?
That was the Pug Stout.
Pug Stout?
Yeah.
Right. So that's where I said this before as it was going to come up, because I still am super happy at the Michigan Beer Cup where he won gold medal in the Irish Stout category for Pug Stout. I got to give Jordan, I was the announcer for that category, and got to give Jordan his first gold medal, and we'll always have that special bond, Jordan.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I wouldn't have wanted it any other way, but
I got to call out Jordan and Brian, right? You got silver in that category?
I did get silver, yeah. I was walking back from the prize table, and all of a sudden Jordan's name gets called. So it's like high five as we're crossing paths.
It was
good
it.
news. But I mean, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, like you said, there is BJCP is the standard of brewing, and if you're going to get into home brewing, you should always check out BJCP. I mean, I started brewing, and I just went to Trevor. I know we talked about it in our first episode. I went to Trevor and said, I want to brew, and I want this and that, and I'm looking for a juicy, fruity IPA, and he just grabbed shit off the shelf, and I got one. And that's cool. That's how I got started. But once I started, getting into the craft and actually wanting to make better beer and or going out and going to a bar and having a wee heavy or some other style and going, and I want to research that, BJCP is the best place to go back and dive into, what is really the specifics of each of those recipes so that you can learn, what kind of malt bill or alcohol level or bittering level or whatever. But what I was going to say though is not every competition is a BJCP competition. So, it's like Bell's. Like it's always it's the best basis that you can start with is BJCP. You just really got to look at your competition that you're going to go into and see, is it one that's completely, impartial or I'm losing my words, but that's just up to taste like Bell's is, or are they following BJCP, or is it like K-Dale where they're looking for a story to be tied to your beer?
So you won a K-Dale competition this year, right? Like
I did, yeah.
All about?
So K-Dale is the Kent District Library. They team up with 4 different breweries, and they solicit brewers in the area to submit a beer along with a book reference or a literary reference that ties that beer to that story, and they're judged, and each of the 4 breweries picks a beer that they like, and you're declared the winner. Again, not BJCP, completely impartial. They don't even use I don't even believe they use a 50-point scale. I think it's something slightly different.
The story even plays part of the points.
And yeah, you get points based on the story, and then the winner of each brewery gets to brew with that beer on that brewery system. So I won with Railtown, with my dry Irish, my coffee stout, and another keeper, Brandon Edwards, won. I'm not sure who. Brandon, I think you're listening. Who are you brewing your beer, and what are you brewing? He'll tell us in a second. But it's just different competitions do kind of different themes and scorings and things like that.
And Jordan mentioned this earlier with being able to brew base styles and I think that getting a foundation for your beer for just like even the more like simple styles like a blonde ale or stout or IPA and then like moving and branching out from there is like so freaking important. Um, I mean, obviously that's worked for Jordan in 2019, so uh, we have a success story there. This isn't a success story for me necessarily, but the homebrewing subreddit r/homebrewing this year, or rather last year, they had a competition. It's the first time that it's happened in maybe like 4 years or something like
Did
that.
that happen this year?
It did. So
I must have missed that. I would have submitted.
the
Oops.
competition. So you could enter in any beer style and it would be judged. And I believe that there were um, maybe like winners within styles, but they didn't get any like prizes or anything like that. The real competition was that there was going to be a ingredient that the community voted on that the beer had to be made with, and those were going to be the beers that were really going to be judged and awarded like flair, like on the subreddit or something. And the ingredient ended up being rye last year. I keep saying that. So um, I have a really good foundation for making like Scottish wee heavies. I really like wee heavies. It's just one of those styles of beers that I enjoy making and I enjoy drinking. Sometimes you just feel like pouring like a nice thick malty beer and just sipping on it for like an hour. So what I ended up doing is sort of taking my knowledge in making wee heavies and making something closer to like a rye wine or like a barley wine. Um, and just used an absolute crap ton of rye. I mean, I don't remember if you guys tried any of this, but this thing was like, it was a syrupy, delicious, like milk chocolatey, like
Yeah.
it's one of my more like favorite beers that I've made in the last like couple years at least. Actually need to go make one again. The thing was so good, but I didn't end up winning. And again, this is going back to categories again because I probably didn't solicit enough feedback with you guys. I entered it as an English barley wine because we still had to select like a base style, and it ended up maybe tasting a little bit more bitter, like an American barley wine. And I actually got docked points, even though it was like an amazing, delicious beer, just because it wasn't, necessarily in the right category. I know, Jason, you have a story about that last year too, don't you? Or was it 2 years
So
ago?
no, it was 2 years ago. I had brewed 5 years ago. I think I had brewed a Russian Imperial Stout that I put in a journeyman bourbon barrel and aged in the bourbon barrel, and it came out good. It did well in its first year. I entered it in some competitions. I think it took maybe a bronze and a silver or something like that. Um, but I set 6 of them back for nationals, and I wanted them to age. Actually, I think I set like 9 of them back, and
By nationals, you mean the National Homebrew
the
Competition?
National Homebrew Competition. So National Homebrew Competition takes place usually in 2 rounds. Everybody around the country in June, or I'm sorry, in early in the year, ships their beer off to whatever judging center in the country they may get. There's last year I think there were 12 judging centers.
Maybe
And
13 even.
and that's considered first round. And then in the first round, if you win first, second, or third place in your category, you're awarded a ribbon, denoting your place. There's no best of show in first round, but anybody that receives a ribbon can then go on to the final table. So basically, 3 beers from every category, from every judging center, goes to the National Homebrew Competition final table, which is at the National Homebrew Festival, which rotates around the country through the year or year by year. and you're judged. Yeah, the Homebrew Con, and you're judged there, and that final table. And if you win first, second, or third there, you get, medal, national homebrew medal, and then the gold medals will all go into like a best of show competition for the big prize. The best beer in the country.
And just to put that into perspective a little bit, so I've never won a national medal. I know you haven't either. I was or Jordan, we're going for it. That's
talking about. I won like 6.
yeah 2021. I'm gonna but to put it into perspective, so like say you enter like a stout, I don't know, some sort of stout, Irish stout. You are maybe being judged. I think on average, maybe my beers had about like 15 beers per
category
at my judging center last year. Say there were 13 judging centers. That's something like 165 beers in the first category that are being judged, like in that one category. And then always there's usually a top 3, right? Like there's almost always a top 3. The only reason there wouldn't be is if there weren't enough beers entered, and that's almost never the case. So every single category is going to have 36 beers being judged at nationals. And so not only do you have to win, 1 out of 15 to start, but you have to win,
out of that. Yeah.
I guess 3. You don't do top 3, but yeah, top 3 out of the best of the best beers that were all sent to nationals too. So I mean, you may be. It's a big thing to win this competition or to even place top 3 at nationals.
A good numbers comparison is local competitions around here usually top out around 500 entries.
And I don't even think like State Fair hit that last year.
Yeah, State Fair I think was in the 300s. Michigan Beer Cup I think is the bigger one in Michigan that can kind of get up. I think it's gotten into the 700 range before. National Homebrew is usually around the 7,000 to 8,000 plus range. I think I saw one year it hit close to 10,000 entries that you're in that mix. So to even get a ribbon in first round is cool and is very. I mean, I've gotten a few, so I have to of course say it's neat. But yeah, to get a medal that's the big one. The only other one I think that would be comparable would be the Pro-Am at the Great American Beer Fest, but I think national is even cooler. So. But back to that beer, back to that wrong category. I had this wonderful, beautiful Russian Imperial Stout.
How did I interrupt that story? What did I say?
Because I mentioned nationals and you wanted me to explain nationals.
Oh shit! I'm sorry. Okay, I forgot that we were even going off on that tangent. Like,
back in.
So I brewed this great Russian Imperial Stout, bourbon barrel aged. It was awesome. I saved it for years and I tried one every once in a while and it finally got to the point where I was like, holy shit, this is the best fucking beer I've ever brewed. I think I took one bottle to a homebrew club meeting and I gave like just a little sip to everybody and everybody was like, fuck yeah, that beer is the bomb. And I got all excited and I shipped it away to nationals and then I eagerly awaited and I got the scores and I took a first place in, I don't know, dry Irish stout, and I think that year I got like a second place in something else or my sour, I can't remember, but nothing. That, the barrel aged stouts, I didn't get shit. I'm like, what the fuck? So I get the score sheet back, and it scored well, like 35 or something like that, which is out of 50. And every judge that judged that beer said this would have been at least 10 points or more higher if you had entered it in the right category. So there's in the beer. Well, that's in the. So there's in the specialty stout category. There's 33A and 33B, and basically one of them is a wood aged beer, and one of them is, that specialty beer it's
wood aged with a liquor basically, in a liquor smoked beer or wood barrel or something.
And so I had put it in the wood aged beer category instead of the bourbon barrel aged category, and it was just me being working through it too fast, rushing through. I'm always shipping my shit out the last minute, and I entered it in the wrong category, and that beer's gone forever. Those were the last bottles. That's it. And I'll it literally took 4 or 5 years to brew and age and perfect that beer, and I threw it away just because I entered the wrong category.
Going out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I guess on that, similar story on mine. I'll just say to everybody, keep your labels straight.
Wait, what happened?
What happened?
I legitimately don't know if I know.
Did you transpose labels?
Yeah, I did.
Oh no!
First year I entered nationals, they're like, one of the judges is like, I can't remember what it was. I had like submitted an IPA or something, and they're like, this tastes like a hop cider. I'm like, I submitted a hop cider that year. I'm like, what's going on? Then my hop cider is like, this is really malty. I'm like, oh no.
Oh, that's even better.
Mixed up.
Oh man, that is.
How was the feedback though? Otherwise, like, oh,
everybody said it, but they were great. It was like, this is fine tasting. Like, I don't taste anything wrong with it. It's generally enjoyable. They're like, but I mean, it wasn't even like, I mean, that's just really fucking wrong. Like, you can't put a cider into a beer category.
No. Oh, that's so painful. Oh,
yeah. Yeah, we're all generally pretty good brews, but yeah, that was like, I guess I paid a lot of money just to realize I'm an idiot. And that's
thinking about that makes me think about like you're drinking, one beer, and then like you hit a cider, right? And like your just entire palate's like fucked for a little bit, kind of, because it's not like what you're going for.
Oh yeah, you probably threw off everybody's scores in that category.
Well, and I was I'm going to bring this up. Like, part of entering a competition too, there is some luck involved, based on where you end up on the flight, basically.
Ordinal scale.
Yeah. So when your beer is being judged, your judge has a flight of beer in front of them, and I'm not sure if there's like a particular number, 8 maybe. It sounds like a good number to go for, like, to start with on average or something.
Yeah.
But the further, say you're judging American IPAs, like hops blow out your taste buds. Like, you can only drink so many IPAs before you start being unable to pick out like the intricacies of like what is being contributed to and stuff. So having your beer at the beginning of the flight can sometimes help a little bit, or maybe hurt, because maybe as judging goes on, people are getting an idea of like what if what they're tasting, right? And if this beer is like worse than all of the others, even if it's decent, it might get a lower score just based off of what they've been tasting. Not that that's supposed to be the thing, but
it's actually it's one of the points that we put in our presentation, brewing for competition, and it's some inspiration that I actually got from when I first started brewing. I read a book by Sam Calgione. I fucked that up, from Dogfish Head.
Yeah.
He wrote a book, Radical Brewing or Extreme Brewing or something like that.
Randy Mosher wrote Radical Brewing, I think.
Oh, you're right. Randy Mosher did. I'm looking at him on my beer shelf, and I'm pretty sure Sam's was Extreme Brewing.
Yeah, I know he wrote one of those.
But it was about, if you like a flavor, go with it. Don't be afraid to put it in there. I know, talking to a lot of early or first time brewers or new brewers, they talk about, how much of this, or if I'm going to use raspberries, how many raspberries, or they worry about the amount that they should put in a brew. Well, one of the tricks, if you're entering a competition, and I really say that it is a trick, because if you're a new brewer, you shouldn't worry about it, and you should focus on just brewing the beer that you like and seeing what the judges say to give you that feedback. But after you've gotten to the point where you're entering competitions now, more for fun, or it's always further refinement. But if you are going for medals, or you want to start, kind of up in your game, you can purposely brew a slightly stronger flavored beer. If you're playing in the fruit category, throw some extra fruit in. If you're playing in the hops category, go a little bit heavy-handed with the hops because of what Brian talked about with that blowout. That judge has to sit there and taste, 15 beers in a row or whatever they are. And by the time they get to yours, it's a luck of the draw, 1 to whatever number, So yeah, if you're early, you might get screwed. But if you're late, then a more bolder standout flavor is going to impress the judges more.
Yeah, that's a great point.
But that's, like I said, it's not shady shit. I always talk about when I talked about brewing in the club, I talk about there's some trickery, some shadier shit that you can probably do, but it's still legit. You brewed that beer and you're doing what you do. But people targeting lesser brewed categories, I did it. I went in nationals this year with a British common ale because I looked last year and 2 people entered it. So shit, I can brew one of those. Unfortunately, I all got made in a hand sanitizer, but
we should talk about that.
We will. We'll get to that. But you can do that. You can look at the categories that are out there and see that there's some that people don't enter too much in, so you can go there, or you can go a little heavier on your flavors. I did want to go into some of the and this is partially just a shout out too. Some for people that are listening in the Homebrew Club locally, you've heard me say this a bunch. But to give some credit to some local competitions, Siciliano's in Grand Rapids does a competition. Usually they go live in February-ish timeframe. They've been doing it now for 15, 16 years. They're a great competition for a first-time homebrewer. O'Connor's in Grand Rapids also does a competition.
Jordan won big there last year.
Yeah, Jordan, you did well in O'Connor's, right?
Yeah, took gold and I don't know, their categories. I guess that's a good point to say with some of the lesser or competitions that have less entries. Sometimes categories get combined together. And in this one, they were kind of combined weird. I want to say like pale ale and blonde ales were paired together. Okay. And then like Brian, because you took gold as well, didn't you? An IPA.
I took gold in IPA, but you took category and top 3, right?
Yeah, overall. I took category and then I took bronze for
right,
best
because
in show.
What was it there? They only medaled the top
the top per category and
the
top 3 overall. Yeah.
Because I placed somewhere in O'Connor's, but I didn't get a top. So O'Connor's is one of the smaller ones, and it's so it stands out. And if anybody ever from O'Connor's listens to this and I'm wrong, I apologize. But when I was first getting into the homebrew competition thing about 7-8 years ago, I remember talking to somebody from O'Connor's, and I was worried about a beer, what category a beer I brewed fit into, and they were like, just send it to us, and if it's in the wrong category, we'll move it. and I think they did, and it was super nice of them.
Yeah,
Nationals, Beer Cup, State Fair, some of the bigger ones, Siciliano's
going on.
Won't do that. So O'Connor's was super newbie friendly. That's really cool. Other ones I want to call out, of course, K-Dale, very, very small competition. I actually want to say there were only like 20 or 30 people that entered K-Dale. But that was fun. David Jones, if he's listening, got robbed. He had one of the best damn stories, even if it was a shitty smoked beer. He should have won. And
that's
then you got
O'Connor's best of show was a smoked
beer. Was a smoked beer? Well, they're all messed up then anyway. Smoked beers are horrible. And then for the cider people, we got Glint Cap in Grand Rapids, which is Great Lakes International Cider and Perry Festival. I got that right. In competition.
And which, like, you wouldn't think like cider and Perry competitions would be like super hardcore, but holy cow!
Glint Cap is serious shit.
There are some. That's like the Mazer Cup of.
It is.
Seeds, and it's like, yeah, it's serious business.
I wasn't going to mention Mazer Cup in case Drew was listening to see if Drew would bring Mazer Cup up in the thing. But I am. These are just Michigan ones. And then the new kid back on the block as of last year in Michigan is the Michigan State Fair has actually brought back their homebrew competition, which is really cool. One of our keepers, Adam Cagle, won Best in Show last year with the wit beer. But then I think for Michigan, the granddaddy competition, the one that everybody is gunning for, is Michigan Beer Cup, and that's held. That coincides with the Michigan Homebrew Fest, which I don't know if Ben's still listening, but someday we're going to get the organizers of the Michigan Homebrew Fest on here, and actually hopefully someday we'll get the organizers of the Michigan Beer Cup on here to talk to them about why they did what they did. But Michigan Beer Cup's probably the largest competition in Michigan. Has a big festival, does great, kind of complete statewide thing. It's kind of like the mini nationals. That said, all of them except I think K-Dale and maybe State Fair, they're all canceled this year, right?
Yep.
Like, fucking COVID.
Yeah.
I'm hoping State Fair doesn't cancel.
Yeah, State Fair is still technically on. It hasn't been canceled yet. I'm really hoping that it doesn't.
Looking it up, like they have one of the widest registration ranges I've seen for a competition. It's like you get like 3 months or something like that to register your beers.
And they were, for those of you listening, if anybody out there hasn't entered State Fair, do, man. It's a comp that used to be a thing years ago, when the Michigan State Fair was a lot bigger, and I think it kind of went away. I don't remember exactly when, but they tried to bring it back last year. It didn't have a huge exposure. I think they only had like about 300 entries, but they were really engaged, and we went out there. Me and Brian and Adam went out there, and of course, they're engaged because Adam won fucking Best of Show. But I remember talking to the organizers. They wanted to know how well they were doing, what they could do better. The brewers were engaged. They were just a really good group. I was really happy. The story there was I went, and I'll blow my own horn on this one because I go there. I'm expecting like 1 or 2 medals, my fucking, old faithfuls to get it. And I get 4. I peg out of 5 entries, I get 4 ribbons. And, because the Michigan State Fair, you don't get medals, you get ribbons. Just like a cow.
It's a fair. Yeah.
Right. So I'm pumped. I got 4 fucking ribbons. It's all great. And then Adam Cagle fucking sweeps in with his 1 beer and knocks out Best of Show. And I'm like, wow, what? I hope you're listening, Adam. He knows this. I bitched about it before. Way to take the sales out of a 4-banger to just to knock out a Best of Show. But we got the.
Do you not place in other categories?
He did. Well, he took first place. He got his first place ribbon in that category.
Okay, so
I believe the Best in Show is picked out of the first place winners. So.
Mm-hmm.
But then we got to walk around the fair for like an hour, carrying this massive trophy with Adam.
He carried it. I mean,
he carried it.
If I didn't win it, I'm not.
No, but we got to walk around with him like a fucking rock star, and that was it was super cool.
Live vicariously through Adam,
yeah.
But so the goal is right to let's keep the keeper's name on there for as long as we can in a row. So.
That's right. If you're in Keepers of Craft, make sure you put your your club name down on your entry. If you're not in Keepers of Craft and you're not in a homebrew club, feel free to put down Keepers of Craft on your entry.
There you go.
Oh yeah.
We'll claim you.
I had to pop that up there. David Jones. So Adam Cagle won Best in Show with a wit beer. That was David Jones's recipe.
Based.
Whatever.
We all have our own flavors, our distinct brewery flavors, right? Yeah.
So then
Adam just has to happen to taste like Best of Show. So
Best of Show, right? So then, those are some of the local competitions. I know I didn't hit them all. There's brewery-driven competitions that happen here and there, but those are the ones that are kind of been going on in Michigan for quite a while. Good ones to enter, typically in the earlier part of the year. and then just to talk about a little bit in the different judging styles. So of course we've already talked about bells and the fact that that's that's impartial to whatever that person that's tasting the beer, whatever they like. The rest of the and then we talked about K-Dale, but being that those what those breweries liked. The rest of those competitions do follow BJCP. There's a little bit of a different style of judging, between Sicilianos and some of the other ones, just to call out. Where Sicilianos, where I think it's a great competition for a first-time brewer, is you're not actually competing against anybody else. Sicilianos is strictly based on your beer. So if you go into Sicilianos and you score a certain level, so I think it's maybe 32 is the lowest, or might be 30, you will get a bronze medal. If you score, at the silver level range, you will get a silver medal. And again, if you score above, I think it's 38, you'll get a gold.
Oh, so that makes it more like a professional.
Right. So there could be in each category there could be 5 gold medals awarded, because again, your beer is scored and you are medaled off of the score on your beer, not off of your position in that category. And then they take all of I believe they still do all of the gold medals kind of go into that best of show, and they pick the best of show, and they have the final big winner. But if your beer is decent and you want a medal, Siciliano is a great competition to kind of boost your start and kind of get you going.
Do you want to elaborate on what you meant there, Jordan, when you meant like sort of like more pro competitions? Because I know what you meant.
Yeah.
But I like pointing this out to people sometimes.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, Jason basically explained it. I mean, as far as I know, it's like you go to large breweries who have like gold medals and whatnot hanging on their wall. A lot of them, they were judged just as that way. If they score high enough,
right,
then they end up walking away with a medal. I wasn't aware that that's how Sicilianos did it, which is kind of cool.
It's super cool.
It is. It's great. I love the Sicilianos competition, and it's good to get that bling, and they're super cool, and they have a great picnic where they announce the winner, and it's a cheap competition. It's the thing is, and I actually respect it. They only allow one entry. But again, because you're not really competing against anybody else, so it'd be silly to enter 7 beers and get 7 medals. Guaranteed pretty much. If you're a brewer that's brewing, I know the 3 of us are, and a lot of people in the club are consistently brewing 32 plus beers. So it's kind of, it'd be silly to go up there and basically tell Steve Siciliano to give me 7 medals.
Catch up to Jason's medal count. That's
don't worry about that.
Got to find 6 other people to submit my beers to Sicilianos.
I tell you, I didn't get enough participation trophies when I was a kid, so I have to enter every competition I can to make myself feel better.
I tell people that too, like not to do like a whole sob story sort of thing, but like I've never been really good at anything, and like in my I was never a sports guy. I was never like the greatest, typist or something like that in school, or like a debate guy or anything. So like
typing.
Yeah, in high school. So in high school, you're old enough.
Sports, so I wouldn't know.
Okay. and so when I was in high school, I want to say like 2000 or so, like being able to type like relatively well was like a desired skill. I had to dress up in a suit, and I got shipped out with like 4 other people from my high school to like a regional speed typing competition.
That's kind of
that's what I did as in high school. But no, and I didn't even medal, right? So
exactly, yeah.
So yeah, it's like this is a justification that I'm good at something in life, I guess. Like it feels good for my middle-aged 30s self.
But they're cool. You get to my first one I won, the first medal I won. I again, it was all right. So I medaled on the first beer I ever brewed. I brewed that beer that Trevor helped me come up with a recipe, and Trevor was super. And if he ever listens to this, I still love him for it. But Trevor was super encouraging. Enter it. You know, and I did. I got that bronze medal from Siciliano's. I was super pumped. I took it down to the brewery to Trevor. I'm like, look, Trevor, I did it. This is what I got. And Trevor put the medal around my neck, and like everybody in the bar bought me a beer. And so it was just one of the cooler things. So that's what I recommend. And what we should do for those of us that hit Michigan Homebrew or Michigan Beer Cup medals, you know, when we actually come back, we should all go to like One Well or something and put our damn medals on and go in there and see if we can snag some free beers. So,
yeah, absolutely. I'm game.
So to answer John's question,
yeah.
I just cracked this Arvon Brewing double. Damn.
That's beautiful.
Put it in front of your body.
There you go.
Yeah.
Double pink guava key lime kettle sour.
What'd you think?
It is not pink.
Oh no.
Kind of bummed.
You could go get some red food coloring.
So false advertising.
Does it taste like pink lemonade as opposed to normal lemonade?
It's a guava kettle sour. Yeah, I think the key lime is lost in the tartness of the kettle sour, because kettle sour, which is a beer that's soured with typically with lactobacillus, which is the yogurt sour culture, so that already has kind of a citrusy tartness to it, if that's the right way to explain it.
Sure.
So I get citrus tart and guava, and no pink.
Oh,
So
gotta taste the pink. No, that still sounds like shit though.
no, I mean it's good. It's called double. I wonder where the double is. Let me see what the ABV is.
Jen, I cracked the lager of the legs. I'm sure you saw that earlier, but just trying to finish up. I bought a 12-pack the other day. I love this beer, but I have so much of my own beer I'm trying to get rid of too.
I'm actually, shame on me as a home brewer, but pretty much tapped out on my kegerator right now. I got to figure out. I'm gonna have to brew this upcoming weekend. Do double time.
If yeah, oh, I guess I don't need to say this on the air, but if you want to come over, I think that Shayna's stepdad is coming over this weekend to brew. Just because her mom's coming into town, so you're more than welcome over to my house.
Yeah, I'll work that. Thank you.
So yeah, COVID.
So COVID, yeah,
kind of fucked with everything this year. I had all these hopes and dreams of medals and certificates and ribbons. And
So first off, though, we should really say COVID sucked and fucked up everything else that's way more important than homebrew competitions.
Oh yeah,
And,
absolutely.
you know, it was a way more serious affair. But put all of that aside and give us our moment to whine and cry that all of the beer that we put all the effort in brewing and all of these competitions that we shipped our beer out to, it either got dumped or made into hand sanitizer because COVID fucked it all up too.
So National Homebrew, like I think the regional ship dates start in like March or something. Is that right?
End of February.
Yeah.
So if you want to brew, and we're in Michigan, right? A lot of us brew outside. It's cold, and if you want to submit like 5-6 beers, you're brewing outside like in December to start with for sure, in order to give yourself enough time to get all your beer like fully fermented, kegged, carbonated, aged a little. Some of the beer that I was planning on sending out this year, I started August of last year.
Yep.
And I've just drank it instead because whatever. I'll just do another this year, but yeah,
yes, and yeah, it had to have been like August or something like that, right?
Yeah. Yes. And you know, not that we still didn't end up with delicious beer out of it. It's just it would have been nice to have delicious beer and a medal.
Yeah,
So,
plus the decorations.
yeah. I need to catch up to Jason and get my wall as blingified.
Unless I stop or die, you're not going to catch up. So.
I don't know, man. We're getting a lot of homebrewers out there. I'm doing my part to try to get as many people into the hobby as I possibly can. So I feel like, the more people that listen to me and take my advice,
You're trying to
the more people that will brew better beer than you. So
Yeah, that's actually my line. So as a competition coordinator, I feel like I have encouraged a lot of people in the club to enter competitions that maybe never had before or never would have. And so I get to step back, Brian. I get to step back and say, I may not have won a medal this year because these 4 friends of mine won medals that I helped encourage them and guide them towards. So that's already mine. You can't take it.
that's a beautiful thing that you just said there.
It is.
So that said, because I've heard this too, this is a point that I wanted to touch on earlier, was just because you enter that first competition and and maybe you don't get the feedback that you're looking for. Maybe, I tell a story in my presentation where I have a Irish stout, I call it Colombian grind. I have this Irish stout that I started brewing. It was one of the first beers I brewed, the first competition I went to. Yes, Tim, it is a great way to rationalize getting my ass kicked. But God damn it, it's mine, and I'm gonna fucking keep it and kiss my ass. But I had Colombian grind. The first competition I entered it in, it scored a 19 out of 50. It was shit. They basically said it was shit, but thankfully they gave me some feedback. They, said, too many bittering malts, too many dark malts, too charcoaly, so I trimmed that and I entered it again. I got 22 or 23 or whatever. And I've kept doing that. I get the feedback and I change the recipe and I tweak it and, and now that beer regularly scores in the mid to upper 40s and is the most award-winning beer I've won. I think that beer alone has pulled in, 10 medals. So, but to go back to my point is not every one of those was great. I can go back in there and look and see, what comment that I got that was just like, chocolatey, or, oh, it's good, or, whatever, like, fuck you. You didn't give me any information. Sorry to be that aggressive. So if you enter a competition and your first beer, and you get that score sheet back and it has, vague feedback, or you don't get, kind of the score that you were hoping for, don't get discouraged, man. I've got a stack of score sheets, 10 inches thick. They joke around about the medals that I've won. It's because I've entered 500 competitions and I've gotten 40 or 50 medals. Like, my win rate is not anywhere close to my fucking entry rate. But for those of you that are out there, just keep entering and enter and enter and enter. I mean, I've gotten that comment that says, it's great. I've gotten the comment that says, I drink another one. Those are, they're not useful. They're not helpful at all. I've gotten them before that have said, this beer is utter shit. And then I'm like, fuck you. That beer won a medal last year. Kiss my ass. And
I think that, like, I read somewhere, for people that are brewing, like, consistently, like beers that are quality, like, that are scoring, 32 plus on the regular, never any lower, you still only roughly have about a 1 out of 3 like medal rate, like for getting the top 3. Like,
yeah,
it's just competition's rough and luck, and everybody's making really good beer these days. I mean, honestly, like,
so most of my competitions, I enter 5 to 7 beers, and I get 1 to 2 medals. That Michigan State Fair last year where I entered 5 beers and got 4, that was my biggest yet, and it was just promptly overshadowed by Adam Cagle. So, but yeah, it's not a lot, but it really isn't. It's not. I actually know a brewer that kind of entered their first beer and got really kind of dejected or just depressed because the very first comment they got back didn't give them really any good information. And I'm not sure that they entered anymore, and that kind of put them off the competition.
Really sucks.
And it bummed me out. But so that's why I said there is a bad part to competitions. It is the feedback. The judges and the people that do judge them and fill those score sheets out do really kind of control that. But at the same time, I'd go back to even that brewer and say, you don't take that to heart. totally, keep entering. It's not about one beer. It's about it's just about getting the feedback and continuing to get better at what you do. So, so we've talked about the competitions around here. We've talked about why to do it, why you should do it, how to do it better. What else can we talk about with competitions? And I know, yeah, our beer got turned into hand sanitizer for COVID. So I will say that is one cool thing. The National Homebrew Competition did go through, and I believe out of the 13 judging centers, probably, well, no, I actually think it was closer to 8.
Oh, wow.
8 of them got turned into hand sanitizer, which is awesome. That we could say that our beer at least went to that noble cause.
Yeah.
A couple of the judging centers, something tells me it was like San Diego and someone else out on the West Coast. They had to dump the beer because of their local regulations.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bummer. That's super sad. But then, if I recall right, and I'm totally pulling this out of my ass, is I believe the Minnesota, Minneapolis, or Wisconsin judging centers donated their fucking entries to the first responders, which totally kicks the shit out of our beer that got made into hand sanitizers. I mean, they took this beer.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, read it up. They took the beer to hospitals and to fire stations and police stations, and they gave it to nurses and doctors and firemen and first responders, and said, "Here, have a beer on us," and that's fucking badass. So,
I hope that was all really good. It's not always gonna. I hope nobody got a gusher, but that's still badass.
So McClellan's in chat talking about club comps and Iron Brew. So yes, as we do organize club competitions, and I try to do that. I want to engage our local homebrew community to enter competitions. So we try to do a few competitions a year. The last one we got to do before COVID, we called it an Iron Brew competition, and honestly, it's one we'll never do again. So in that Iron Brew competition, we got together and we picked from a randomized list of ingredients. We picked 3 things, and then each home brewer went home and brewed a beer with those 3 ingredients. It had to have those 3 ingredients. And what were our ingredients?
Cherry, kiwi, and a nut.
Yeah, cherry, kiwi, and nuts. What a shitty beer.
The way that's organized will be revised in the future, I think. But
yeah, it was a fun competition. But we've done different things with competitions in the club. We did the cereal beer competition. Brian did a generator where he built a website to generate a beer recipe. And then we did the David Jones came up with the football draft competition. There you go, the beer generator recipe. This is the greatest website ever. Just log into it, and it will write 4 random recipes for you that you have to pick one of, and then you can re-roll it, right?
Yeah. So if these all suck, you basically just re-roll it, and you get to go with 3 next time. So like a vanilla wheat beer for breakfast. So that must contain a whole box of cereal fermented with a lager yeast, or a hoppy wheat wine with a noticeable amount of coffee flavor fermented with a Hefe yeast. I don't remember what the end number was, but I think I figured out there was something like, I don't know, like maybe 8,000 or 9,000 different like unique like recipes or something that could be generated with this.
Yeah.
And it could be like more, crazy or something like that. But that was fun.
Of course, the site is still live.
I put it up so people could play with it. I think I don't know if I deleted all the entries or not. I might have, but oh nope, they're still there.
Yeah. And we're actually getting ready to. I think I talked to David about it a bit yesterday. We're getting ready to. I think at the next meeting we'll start talking about the Keeper's Cup. which is going to be a Keepers of Craft competition where you brew your best beer. It's not going to be any crazy ingredients or anything like that. You brew your best beer, and we're going to try to judge that and have it ready. Have judging take place around the November timeframe. So if you're not in Keepers of Craft, pay your $15 and join our competition. I'm hoping to do BJCP style, but we're still 5 months away from that. So we'll figure it out. But I'm definitely, as we did in the last competition, I really encourage people to write feedback and good notes. And I'm actually quite proud of the Iron Brew. As shitty as the overall competition was, I think we all did a really good job of trying our best to write.
You saying that because you won it?
No. I won it? Oh, no.
Didn't you win the cereal beer one too?
Yeah, I did. So on my wall of medals, I'll totally own that one. On my wall of medals, the two that are most nearest and dearest to me are the two Keepers of Craft.
The competition
awards.
coordinator ends up winning the competitions.
I won cereal beer way before I was competition coordinator. My beer didn't have sludge in it, Tim. It had coconut extract.
It looked like snot.
It was.
Yeah, and it still won. Who are you people? Who's voting on this shit?
Like, it was good. The base was good. So the funny thing there was the base of the Iron Brew beer was the same as the cereal beer. So it just shows that that's a really goddamn good beer.
Did you use Fruit Loops in that one?
Yeah, I did. Fruit Loops.
Probably just poured coconut snot into Looper and
you did. I did.
Around.
I did. I took Looper and I put kiwi extract, cherry extract, and coconut extract in it about an hour before the meeting, and
Did you talk about
brought
Judgment?
it. Judgment was my first beer. Judgment was the very first beer that I brewed with Trevor. That's the recipe that Trevor helped me write, and that was the joke. I entered it at. So there's two things. Judgment was the guild I was in my online gaming community, and then I also made the joke that I'm going to put this in a beer competition, and based on how it's judged, will determine on if I keep with this hobby or not. And it won a medal, and so
here we are.
I continued brewing. Yeah, thanks, TK. It's good to see you, man. We actually should get Mr. Rinke on. TK is a good friend of mine that used to live here in Michigan that writes for one or more beer, can, and brewery collectible magazines. That's right. Trent, you're listening to me. I'll reach out. We'll schedule an episode. Talk about beer
fun.
cans. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Anything else exciting and interesting about competitions that we can bullshit about?
I've fucking told all my stories tonight. I think. I swear.
Right on.
Yep.
Well, I will say, we are going to keep doing this shit show at 7:30 on Mondays, regardless of if we have somebody to chat with. It'll just be the three of us bullshitting.
We do have at least a few people lined up for the next couple of weeks. Right?
We do. I don't. Let me check my text. No, I don't have confirmation for next Monday's show, but I can say that while we've been talking, I did hear back from Deb at Tagabrew. If you're listening, Deb, thanks for answering. So we will get to learn about the Tagabrew story in the near future.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, Deb's super cool, and really excited to hear about the Tagabrew and what got her going. I've been in touch with the guys that some of the guys that started to organize the Michigan Homebrew Festival. So we'll have some of them on to tell us the story of why they got together and started the Michigan Homebrew Festival and what's that turned into. Now it's going into its 11th year, and thanks to the lifting of restrictions, God damn it looks like it's happening. Super excited about that. That's Beer Christmas. It's the best time of the year.
Oh, it is.
And then also Ed from ArcLight, the head brewer, co-owner of ArcLight, is going to come on. They've got an amazing sour program. We're going to talk to Ed and learn about ArcLight down in Watervliet. And then obviously I just called out Trent Rinke, who is actually, like I said, he writes for Beer Can Collectible magazine that interviews people for a living. So that'll be kind of awkward interviewing the interviewer, but I think it'll be pretty fun. And then we're reaching out to other breweries. So if anybody out there knows other breweries that you want to kick them a link to Michigan Brews and have them ping us, we're starting to send some emails out to some breweries, homes, and some different breweries around the state. I'd love to try to span out from Southwest Michigan and start getting into East Side. And then the club, homebrew club presidents. So we're going to get some presidents of various homebrew clubs in the state, and we're going to talk to them about what goes into organizing a homebrew club and keeping a homebrew club active. And yes, Mr. McQuillan, you're damn right, we will have a show live from Beer Camp this year in August, and we'll all be sitting 6 feet apart. So, yeah. That's all
Any
I got.
closing words? I'm good, man.
Cheers.
If anybody, oh shit.
Yeah, we're gonna go drink in the Kalamazoo.bar, right?
Yeah.
So let's throw a link up. We'll throw a link up, Kalamazoo.bar. If you've got a webcam or a microphone, come join us. Have a drink. Hang out for a minute. Trent, Matt, kick it in the Kalamazoo Bar. We'll be there in a few minutes.
We're there for like an hour, like last week or so. We should throw it up on our Facebook pages. Some other locals will show up. It's basically like a perpetually open Zoom room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Cheers,
Peace out,
guys.
everybody.
Hey, thanks for watching tonight, guys. Appreciate it.